Assalamu alaikum dear students, and welcome to the 8th session of the KIPS 18th session of the KIPS distance learning program current affairs newspaper roundup session. The topic for today is going to be is the 18th amendment that was brought in 2010 to substantially alter the constitution of Pakistan and the making up of Pakistan's governing structures, was that a loss? Was that a problem? Should it be rolled back, or should it not be rolled back, and should it be strengthened further? And the reason why I'm going to discuss this today, your host Shahrukh Haider, is because recently and in the past as well, the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf government has time and again criticized the 18th Amendment for weakening the federation and for reducing the writ of the government and the rule of law around the country by making provincial governments responsible for their own affairs, whereas the provincial governments do not have the capacity, the institutional capacity and the resources that are required to substantially and effectively govern all the subjects that they were given under the 18th Amendment. So let's have a look at that and let's see whether the PTI government is right in its criticism or not. So for much of our history, the allocation of powers between the federal and the provincial governments and their legislatures has been a subject to push and pull forces of centrifugal and centripetal nature, with the center always reluctant to cede any real power to the provinces. Demands for greater provincial autonomy were dismissed in most cases on the pretext that a strong federation and a federal government was required to thwart the various national and external threats that were facing Pakistan, which is why a culture of authoritarianism set into the very heart of the Pakistani governing structure. So let's look at the 18th Amendment. The 18th Amendment was passed on 19th April 2010 with the complete consensus of all political parties. It was passed in quite a positive environment in the parliament, where all the political parties, the different political interests, agreed on the constitution of the 18th Amendment, and there was widespread consultation that was done before the 18th Amendment was framed, with all members, including civil society, media, and all kinds of stakeholders that one can think of. So it was a very democratic exercise. And it was passed to improve the 1973 constitution, to do away with all the anomalies and distortions that were introduced into the 1973 constitution by different dictatorships and authoritarian rulers in the past. So what it did was that it restored the parliamentary form of government. Executive power was returned to the Prime Minister through his or her cabinet. So a cabinet notification was to be one of the highest exercises of power in the land. It introduced a total of 102 amendments into the constitution of 280 articles, which was nearly 34% of the constitution. Many people have called the 18th Amendment a mini constitution in itself, because it was dramatically comprehensive, and it really reshaped Pakistan constitutional structure. And it removed the president's power to unilaterally dissolve the parliament. Article 58(2)(b), the historic black law, which really made the president a dictator. And so more than that, one of the most important developments that led to the 18th Amendment was the Charter of Democracy that was signed in 2005 in London between the then two biggest political stalwarts of our country. Furthermore, the 18th Amendment also removed the powers of the governors to impose governor law, and the Article 173 was also amended, which reduced, or in fact removed, the powers of the governors to intervene into the matters of the provincial government on behalf of the federal government. It eliminated any chances of martial law in the future as well, because military rulers used to justify and validate their law by coercing the Supreme Court and the judiciary to pass the black law of doctrine of necessity and legitimize their law. So the Article 6(2)(a) of the Constitution after the 18th Amendment reads, An act of treason mentioned in clause 1 or clause 2 shall not be validated by any court, including the Supreme Court and a High Court. So a martial law in Pakistan will not be validated by the courts now, as it has been in the past, which gave them the legitimacy that was required to rule and govern Pakistan. It also, and this is very important, deleted the concurrent list. The concurrent list contained a number of subjects such as health, education, agriculture, irrigation. All of these subjects were previously controlled by the Federation, and they were under the name of the concurrent list in the 1973 Constitution. When the Constitution of 1973 was formed, it was written that these subjects will remain. Three basically lists were made. The first one was the Federal List, which contained powers that were reserved for the Federation, the federal government, such as foreign policy, budget, defense. Whereas there was a Provincial List, which contained the powers that were reserved for the provincial government, which are not really substantial, labor laws, etc. And then there was a concurrent list, which contained the largest number of powers that should have been given to the provincial government, but they weren't given, and they were put in the concurrent list. And it was said that these subjects will be managed and governed by the Federation and the federating units in collaboration, whereas in reality what happened is that basically these powers are also with the Federation. Now, the primary reason mentioned for this power grab by the Federation was that the provinces do not have the capacity to handle these subjects nor the finances. And to a large extent that claim is true. At that time that was true, and it was also written in the 1973 Constitution that after 10 years time the concurrent list will automatically stand abolished and the subjects in the concurrent list will be transferred to the provinces automatically. But that did not happen because the Constitution was abrogated in 1977, and then martial law came in, and the 1973 Constitution was abused a number of times after that, and the concurrent list was never abolished until the 18th Amendment came in. Moreover, the 18th Amendment also changed the name of former North-West Frontier Province to Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. The size and the structure of cabinet was also changed. Moreover, the reserved seats for minorities were increased, for women were increased. Education up to 16 years of age was made a fundamental human right, and that was the responsibility of the state to ensure that. So, fundamental human rights from Article 5 to Article 25 were also, improved. And the Council of Common Interest was also empowered and restructured to make it more relevant in order to solve center-province relations that were looming always in the Federation of Pakistan. It also restructured the National Finance Commission Award to increase the share of the provinces in the national revenue source, so that now that they have the new subjects to cater to and to govern, they have the necessary resources to do that. So, the recent criticisms that we have seen of the 18th Amendment are very detailed, and they have come from different corners, especially from the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf government, time and again, not just now in the throes of the COVID-19 pandemic, but also earlier when they came into government. They were consistently, there was a narrative of trying to backroll the 18th Amendment to try to undo the 18th Amendment, to give more power to the Federation to rule and govern the country as it sees fit. So what were these criticisms of the 18th Amendment then and now? Well, first of all, it is said that Federation reduced its share in the federal divisible pool of resources too much, which is why the fiscal deficit that the government has been facing for nearly 2 years has been so ballooned, because the federal government shares most of its resources with the provinces and simply doesn't have the resources to weather in the fiscal deficit. Secondly, devolution has weakened the Federation, and that is bad for national integration and security. And this is especially something that the PTI government has been raising in the backdrop of the COVID-19, where the PTI government has been unable to evolve a national strategy to deal with the coronavirus, because there is 18th Amendment, there is provincial autonomy, and the provinces are free to evolve whatever kind of strategy that they want to evolve to fight this menace. And this is interesting because this is something that has been happening in the United States of America as well, where the state governors and the federal government represented by the President Trump are at each other's horns, and they are really, engaged in a tussle in order to see which power center is going to control how states respond to the COVID-19 threat. And the New York governor, for example, outrightly condemned Trump for trying to intervene into the state matters of New York and said that the autonomy of New York will not be eroded in any case, irrespective of how damning the COVID-19 threat is. Now, similarly in Pakistan, the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf government has been blaming the Sindh government for creating chaos, for trying to use this crisis to its political advantage, which is why we need national solidarity and we need the power centers to be united, and that can only happen if the 18th Amendment was not in place, which means that provincial government is not required in times of crisis. Now, this is the kind of narrative that the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf government is forwarding right now. And the third, naturally, criticism was that the education curriculum should be uniform throughout the country as set by the Federation. For that, education must remain under the federal umbrella, and the Federation should have the subject of, education. But that is not really relevant right now. So let's get on to the real problems, whether these criticisms are correct or not. Well, first of all, the Federation, decreasing its share in the federal divisor pool and giving more revenue to the provinces has only resulted in the provinces utilizing those revenue to improve their capacity to collect revenue and to increase sources of revenue, which in turn has substantially increased our overall revenue collection that the Federation collects, which is why the total share of the Federation hasn't dramatically reduced as is claimed by these dissidents. Secondly, the idea that devolution has weakened the Federation is also not correct, because previously there were, as you know, seditions and anti-state activities and non-state actors working against the state of Pakistan in order to seek independence. Balochistan Liberation Army, Sindhu Desh, and various other nationalist independence movements going on in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, because these people felt that the federal government did not represent or safeguard their interests, but was only concerned with pooling its own power and keeping essential power and resources within its own hold, which is something that the 18th Amendment really addressed, and that in reality actually strengthened the Federation, because it engaged the dissidents and people who are anti-state directly into the governance of their own lives and their own provincial interests, which is why they got more invested into the project of Pakistan, and hence their loyalties were returned to Pakistan. So I believe that national integration was ensured through the 18th Amendment rather than weakened. So what are the real problems of the 18th Amendment, and do we really need to roll it back? Well, first of all, the provincial capacity problems has remained to be a central theme of provincial autonomy, because even though the resources are given to provinces and the autonomy was given to provinces to govern such important sectors as the health sector and the education sector, not much has improved in the last 10 years in the health and education sector, specifically in the province of Sindh and Balochistan. And that is really damning, because you have more resources, you have the power to invest those resources in order to improve those important welfare systems and sectors of society, and you do not do it for 10 years. That is criminal neglect and very bad incompetence. And this is why Sindh's response to the COVID-19 has also not been very good, and it has the highest number of fatalities and the highest number of cases of COVID-19 as well. Karachi, being the largest metropolis of Pakistan and the financial capital of Pakistan, despite having so much money, has a dismal healthcare education system, which is why the largest number of COVID-19 cases anywhere in Pakistan in a city are in Karachi, are consistently rising, because the Sindh government has failed to contain the spread of the virus and to ensure a lockdown which is followed by the people. Moreover, no real development has taken place in Sindh and Balochistan in terms of development. Quetta has remained to look like what it was 10 years ago. In Sindh, for example, in Karachi, the Karachi Circular Railway is a lost project. They have put the last nail on its coffins, and many other development projects have not really outlined, and much of Karachi remains to be extremely dirty, filled with garbage and sewage and dirt and smell, and the public transportation system in Karachi is absolutely deplorable, and many other things. So not much development has happened in Sindh overall, let alone Karachi. And one other important problem is the devolution from the provincial government further on to the ground roots. And this is one of the most important democratic exercise that must take place in a country that hopes to become democratic in nature, because once the power was devolved from the federation into the federating units, the local government subject was also transferred to the federating units. Now, all the 4 provinces did come up with their own local government legislation over time. In 2019, for example, Punjab came up with it in 2016, Sindh came up with it in 2011, Balochistan came up with it. But in the end, no real power was ever transferred to the local governments after they were elected, which is why democracy never really took root in Pakistan's rural areas or in neighborhoods around urban areas. Now, this is a very important thing, because in many places around the world, in developed democracies, countries are using their local bodies and ground root movements in order to ensure that people are following social distancing and lockdown measures, and the spread of coronavirus is contained as much as possible. And such services as food and rationing and transportation, which are essential even in a lockdown, are carried out to a large extent by local bodies. Their role is extremely important in a democratic society, but that has failed to evolve in Pakistan, and which is why the COVID-19 threat has really unfolded in Pakistan without much effective response from the ground roots. Moreover, as far as the finances are concerned, this is also important, because their distribution under the 18th Amendment, although was improved and made more equitable, wasn't as equitable as it should be. For example, Sindh contributes 69% to the overall revenue that is generated in Pakistan and collected by the Federation, yet it only gets 24% share in the National Finance Commission Award. So, should we roll back the 18th Amendment? Absolutely not. There are problems in the 18th Amendment which can and should be addressed with consultation of the provincial government, the provincial legislatures. The forum of the Council of Common Interest should be substantially used, and coordination mechanisms should be built between the federal government and the provincial government in order to ensure that everyone is on the same page and any crisis is not used to gain political momentum, as it is being used by the Sindh government, by the Pakistan People's Party government in the case of Sindh. So I believe that more devolution is needed rather than less. With that, I leave you. Thank you very much for your patience. Take care. Allah Hafiz.